Hello and welcome to Longship Gaming. Well, it has come to this. Everybody's been doing it lately, and by everybody I mean all the other Marvel Champions content creators I've seen online in the past few weeks. I guess maybe it's that lull period between the Sinister Six cycle finishing up and the upcoming Mutant Genesis one. I'm going to assume that a lot of people had a lot of time to do this because, well, I'm facing the same thing. So I'm going to be doing a rating of every single hero in the game, all 35 up to this point. By the time these go up, hopefully all 3 parts of this video will be up before Mutant Genesis comes out, and then we'll have 4 more heroes on release and 5 more scenarios. Lots of content going forward in the future, for sure. But I thought I would take this opportunity to go through all the existing heroes in the game, give them a rating, and, in a year's time, probably revisit it to see if anybody got shuffled around, because we'll have God knows how many by summer of 2023. So, before I get into it, I just want to go over, I want to kind of level set, give you an idea of the criteria that the heroes are judged on. My ratings are based on playing these heroes in solo and on expert, with a variety of decks, but far from all combinations. I mean, there's something like 900, actually alone between playing every hero and every villain in combination. It's about at least I think about 900 by now combinations. Add that into having different aspects, you're quadrupling that. So nobody's got time for that. But it is based on my experience with the game over the past, I really got into it last year, so it's probably about a year since I started playing this game, actually. Hundreds of games. Playing every hero at least once, if not more times. And a lot of cases in combination with a lot of different villains. But as I said, there is no way that anybody could play everybody against everybody else. Initially, when I started playing the game, I tried to do that. It didn't work out. I had to be more selective about what I did, or else I would never actually get to half the heroes, or more than half the heroes. So, how we're judging our heroes is going to be based on 5 categories, on a 10-point scale for each, with a maximum score of 50, going low to high. So 1 worst, 10 best. These factors are going to be fun factor. Is the hero fun to play? More so, do I have fun playing that hero? Power level, how powerful is the hero's base cards, abilities, basics, etc. I do mention how their hero power levels tend to change depending on the kind of cards that have become available in the card pool. So that can be factored into it as well. Theme. Is the hero flavorful? Does the hero exemplify the aspects of what you think of when you think of that hero? How well does the game emulate the theme of what they can do, who they are, their place in the Marvel Universe? Versatility. How many different aspects can be played well with the hero? Now, this is largely taken from my own experience, but also I've had a look at the Marvel Champions database and called up those decks that are consistently the most popular. I know it's not the most scientific method, but you can get a good idea of where the larger community is looking at certain heroes and what aspects they fit into best. And then lastly, complexity. How easy or how difficult is the hero to play? Tie breaks are in order of, and there's a lot of ties, as you will see, in terms of the final number values. Fun, then power, then theme, then versatility, then complexity. We're going to cover all 35 heroes. They're arranged into 3 tiers, and each tier will be covered per video. So today we are going to be starting off with the lowest of the low, tier 3, 12 heroes, and we will cover mid-tier and then top tier in our third video. So settle in. Hope you enjoy. Please let me know in the comments how you, if you agree or disagree with my ratings overall. I hope this sparks some discussion. And I've tried to be as comprehensive and honest about my feelings towards these characters as possible. So, as I said, settle in. We've got a lot of heroes to go through in this part 1 of 3, looking at the tier 3 heroes. All right, starting off with our hero in 35th place. The bottom of the list and the bottom of tier 3. I should point out that tier 3, the idea is that generally I know I'm going to be in for a rough time against the majority of villains in the game, or something that just doesn't gel very well with me in terms of the way I like to play. But in spot 35 is StarLord. Okay, so fun factor. I give StarLord a 4. So on paper, the push your luck mechanic, in StarLord's case, adding more encounter cards for some benefit, seems good. But the reality of actually playing StarLord feels bad. For the majority of the game, pushing your luck that way is only going to slow down your ability to build an engine, and I think is really only suitable for endgame. It's the way I feel. Playing StarLord, because it's essentially how he works with the push your luck mechanic, with what could go wrong, and I'm going to say that most of the time it goes very wrong. And other cards, of course, that work off of that push your luck mechanic. It's essential to playing his kit the way that he's designed, because his cards tend to be very expensive to bring out. Lots and lots and lots of 3s, which is built into the idea that what can go wrong is interrupt. Give yourself a face down counter card and reduce the resource cost of the card by 3. So it's built right in there, just the expensive aspect of them. Daring Escape, hero action, deal 1 face down counter card, ready your hero, draw 1 card. It's just basically readying yourself, replacing itself, but also giving you a harder time in the future. I don't find it to be that great of a benefit at all. It's core to his function, and I don't find that particularly fun for most of the game. You will always feel like you're playing on heroic. Okay, so next is his power level. I rate that a 4 as well, out of 10. Remember, we're going from lowest to highest. In order to do any significant burst damage, StarLord has to push his luck all the time. His attacks and thwarts are very weak without it. His guns, his element guns, are very expensive for what they do. Exhaust element guns spend 1 resource of any type, deal 3 damage to an enemy, attack gains piercing. So not only does it cost a lot to bring out the guns, you're doing a lower end of damage, and it's costing you a resource every time to do so. And piercing is not always that relevant in a lot of situations. 2-2-1 for a stat line. 2 thwart, 2 attack, 1 defense is solid enough. It's close enough to my much preferred 2-2-2. It's his alter ego action in his setup. Smooth Talker. Choose a card in your hand, swap that card with the top of your deck. Is better It would be better if you could actually go looking for something you actually might need, like naming a card type to go get it and discard. But having to swap blindly at the what's at the top of your deck, it doesn't feel so great. One thing that I do find that it presents interesting gameplay possibilities is the Guardian keyword. There's a lot of good Guardian cards, and there's lots of good deck building or interesting deck building possibilities with the Guardians. But they have to do a lot of heavy lifting in a StarLord deck to make him worthwhile. So we'll see what happens. I don't think there's going to be any Guardians in the future, so I don't think there's nothing that's going to really be boosting his power. So I think he's sort of left hanging out to dry for now. Okay, theme. Theme of 8. 8 is very thematic, I feel. The scrappy underdog, risk-taking and squeaking out a win sort of feel is there. I get why they've done this. I get why you've got this push your luck mechanic with StarLord. I just wish it was weighted a little better in his favor than the way it's implemented. So that the negatives definitely outweigh the benefits. And much like a lot of the Guardians, so I'm not entirely sure why Nova Prime is his ally, but at least he has some flavorful stuff in there, like his jet boots, the element guns, the fact he's a leader, and bad boy, and so on. I get why they're in there. So overall, I think he's very thematic, but theme doesn't really translate to power in this particular case. Versatility. Well, this only gets a 2. I really think that it's only leadership because of his ability to make all of his allies Guardians, and opens up a lot of possibilities with like Avengers themed. So you can have like Guardian Avengers or Guardian Asgard or any number of combinations like that. Can be very can be fun to see what you can do. But leadership really is it. He relies so heavily on his allies to be able to do a lot of the heavy lifting in his deck. He doesn't really have a lot of significant burst. You know, he does a bit, but again, very, very expensive cards in sliding shot. So lastly, we have complexity. The push your luck mechanic. So I give this a 4 out of 10. Push your luck makes StarLord a little harder to play than most heroes, because you really have to be careful and judge when you're going to use it during the turn. But as I said, you're basically playing on heroic all the time, playing StarLord for what I view as a minimal benefit. You can really you can overextend very easily, even with only one encounter card out. And the misplay potential is very high with StarLord. So thus leaves StarLord with 22 points in total. He is currently in last place, spot 35. Well, the good thing about that, I guess, is that there's only one way to go, and that's up. So we'll see what the mutant cycle brings that may be able to enhance StarLord somewhat, because, I mean, it really, he can't get any worse than he already is. So, sorry, StarLord. You're at the bottom in spot 35. Coming in at number 34, maybe a surprise to some people, Adam Warlock. So, his fun factor, I give that a 6. So tutoring, and I'll say more about that in a moment, is a fun mechanic. Feeling like you always have the right answer at the right time feels really good. Always being able to search for that specific card that you need. Discarding cards and chewing through your deck, however, causing more encounter cards to come out and appear more frequently, which is the thing that's going to happen with Adam Warlock, is not particularly fun. But it's a trade-off. I do find, however, Adam Warlock's base cards to be somewhat somewhat dull and by the number. So fun, 6 out of 10. Power level is a 7. Better than average due to the tutoring. Again, more on that in a moment. And the full heal that you get from Soul World. A repeatable full heal. Not one of those, you take damage, discard this card. Remove the card from the game. You're going to be running your deck through so many times, you're going to have a lot on to Soul World. As long as you have it. It only costs 1 to come out anyway. So you exhaust it, remove 1 soul counter from it, heal all damage from your identity. So Adam Warlock is extraordinarily difficult to kill. The deck would not really function, I don't feel, without it. Because, again, he doesn't really have any huge burst. Either thwart or damage. Sort of like a very much a mid-range sort of character, doing 3 or 4 thwart damage, depending on their cards. So games are generally going to go long, especially against some of the villains that have high threat minions that come out, or high damage minions. The stat line is very weak: 1 thwart, 1 attack, and 2 defense. But Battle Mage, you know, it makes up for it somewhat. Not tremendously, but somewhat. Being able to do, you know, a little bit of damage, a little bit of heal, a little bit of threat removal, which is not bad. But it's limit once per phase as well. Considering it costs a discard to do so, you're always going to be starved for resources. Cards aren't particularly expensive. Nothing goes over, nothing goes over 2. So he's not that expensive to play his core cards. Theme is a 6. So as I said, he's a bit of a bland character. It feels like a collection of generic abilities rather than a character. Interestingly, I haven't recently played the Guardians video game. You know, I now understand. I don't usually bring up much when it comes to the Nemesis sets, but the Magus, you know, I understand the relationship now between the two of them. It makes the character a little more thematic or flavorful, but not overly so. I don't really feel like I'm playing Adam Warlock. I don't really, you know, feel what kind of character he's supposed to be. He's a cosmic power, but he just seems sort of mid-range and sort of weak. So, yeah, I don't know if the theme really translated well to the rules. Versatility, that only gets a 2. There's really only one deck to play with Adam Warlock, and that's Wild Tutor. Wild Tutor, when that was developed, and I think anybody who's played Adam Warlock, I should provide a link probably in the description as to what I'm referring to. Or, you know, you can see the video I did of Adam Warlock previously that used the Wild Tutor deck. It's really it. Like, because he has to take an equal number of aspect cards and has access to all the aspects in his deck building, I really don't think you're ever going to, unless those individual cards get really better, but a lot of them are based on him being a mystic, they're really never going to get much better than they are already. With no new Guardians showing up, no new event, like we're not going to have Avengers, we're not going to have Guardians showing up for the near future. I don't know how in the world you could ever improve upon that one deck. So in a sense, you know, you're locked into one very, admittedly, very good and very powerful deck, but he was solved almost immediately by the time it came out. So there's not a lot of innovation to come with Adam Warlock. He is what he is, and he's pretty much always going to be that. And along with that comes complexity, which I give a 3. He's one of the harder heroes to play because that's the nature of Tutor-style decks. Yes, you can go searching for the answer that you're looking for. Sometimes you're going to whiff, and that's going to feel really bad. I mean, you can say that it's easy. You're always going to be tutoring and always looking for what you need. But you have to be very careful about which kind of cards you're tutoring up to face what threats at a time. Again, because Adam Warlock is so mid-range, he's got to maximize what he can do on his turn. So there's a little more complexity when taking on most scenarios. So that leaves him on 24 points in total. As I said, he's unlikely to move from this spot unless an entirely new non-tutor archetype is developed with new cards maybe in the mutant cycle, but I somehow doubt it. I think that he's always going to be this deck and not much else. I would love to be proven wrong. If you have seen any other kind of successful deck or put one together, please let me know in the comments, because I would be more than happy to play with it to see if my opinion changes. But at the moment, Wild Tutor is it, and it's likely that Adam will stay in Tier 3 forever. Coming in at number 33 is the Hulk. Fun factor, I give him a 3. Sometimes a hero can be underpowered but still fun to play, that underdog sort of feel. But when a hero known for his power hits more like puny Banner than the Incredible Hulk, it just feels bad. His hero cards are far too costly, even with limitless strength. And when you're forced to discard your hand at the end of your turn, and it's a measly size of 4, it just feels awful. It does not feel like power. His power level, I'm going to give him a 3. He's crippled by his downsides. And as longtime players of Champions know, and may have read about the situation with his development from various dev interviews, how he was nerfed just before his release. Not to unplayable status at all, but certainly nowhere near the power that he should be, or capability that he should be, especially for such an early hero, early release. Subsequent cards that have come out to try and fix him, so Limitless Strength and Unbreakable, for example, it's far from enough. So a stat line of 0, 3, and 3 with no thwart at all, and small hand sizes, those are the real problems with Hulk. No matter what you do. Like not having any thwart at all, you're relying very heavily on your aspect cards, and that's almost always going to have to be Justice. For his theme, I give it a 6, slightly better than average. So when he does smash, when he can afford to smash, he does smash. He smashes harder than any other hero in the game. Banner does what Banner does. He researches. You can draw a card, but then you have to choose and discard a card from your hand. So that should have just been draw a card as an action. Considering he has a hand size of 5, I don't know why he is so limited this way. It should be a 6 like a lot of other characters, and this be able to draw a card for free. Many other characters are like that, but for some reason he doesn't get that capability. Unfortunately, the theme gets in the way of good design. They put so much into the smashing and just made it too expensive to do. But at least he's got Banner's laboratory, so he does his researching if he needs to, which generates a genius resource. Which is okay, I suppose. It's not in any way great. +2 recovery is really great, but again, he's got 18 hit points, so damage is not really his concern. It's getting rid of threat. Versatility. So I did say that generally when playing solo you're going to be stuck with Justice, but I do feel that aggression and protection are viable with Hulk. But that's really because he has so little going for him on his own. He doesn't really support leadership very well. I mean, he is an Avenger, so you could. But because leadership depends on getting as many allies, Avenger allies, as often, as much as possible, you're really crippled with a hand size of 4. Especially since you can't hold on to anybody good. So the more expensive Avengers, you're never really going to be able to get out. It's just too pricey to get his engine running. So you are relying on, either, protect him for a while so he can just go straight smash. But I think a lot of the time you're going to end up in Justice. But still, I give it a 6 out of 10 because, I mean, his kit is so bad on its own. You've got some things to work with in solo. Complexity, 7. 7 out of 10. He's relatively easy to play because you don't have a lot of decisions to make outside of maximizing how to play your tiny hand. So, lack of choice sort of guides your decisions from turn to turn. So, it sort of feels like you don't have a lot of decision making to do. You have to play everything you can at your max own capability. And a lot of times you're still discarding cards. And it doesn't feel so great. So, in total, 25 points. So unless there's another bunch of new cards to support him in the mutant cycle, so more cards that play off of hit points greater than 14, but I think we may have seen the end of those. Unless there's something, because I can't remember if Colossus might have 14 hit points. I'm thinking he does. So maybe there's some aspect cards that come out that may help with this. Maybe in aggression, maybe in protection. Who knows? Because right now they're basics, and I think they need to start putting some of those cards into aspect cards or into aspects. Unfortunately, I think that just means though you cannot, the term lipstick on a pig. You can't put enough cards out that wouldn't take up the majority of his 25 cards to be able to make him any better than he is. So I think, unfortunately, Hulk is going to be destined to sit in Tier 3 forever. There's a chance he can move up, but I think it's fairly unlikely. So there, Hulk will sit in 33rd place. All right, coming in at 32, Spectrum. So I'm going to say right off the bat, for fun factor, I'm going to go over 4. I don't like form-changing heroes. Generally. For the most part, there are exceptions, but Spectrum is by far the worst of them. It's very easy to make the wrong choice of form with few opportunities to correct that error on your turn. She does not feel as agile in terms of her form changes as other form changing heroes do. She has a power level, in my opinion, of 4 out of 10. 111 is a bad stat line, no matter how you cut it, and no matter what energy form she's taken on the turn. So Photon, Pulsar, Gamma. It gives you a +2 in that particular category, but again, leaving you very little opportunity to, buffer a mistake on your turn if you've chosen the wrong form. And the hero response, after you change to this energy form, deal 1 damage, or heal 1 damage, or remove 1 threat, seems anemic. I think that it probably should have been 2 to bring her in line with other heroes, say like SheHulk. When she flips over to hero form, she just does 2 damage. 2 seems like a reasonable amount. You can clear out a tiny minion. You could take off the last 2 threat off a scheme. It would feel like a powerful change to that form, immediate effect. But unfortunately, they did not do that. So the bonus to changing doesn't really feel very effective. She doesn't really have any abilities, any actions on her. You have a forced response. So on her alter ego side, you just power down and all your energy forms turn off. And on this side, you just flip one over as a forced response. You've got nothing else going on. It's just her flipping and changing. So at her, as Spectrum herself goes, she doesn't really do much. And again, if you chose the wrong basic ability, then you're kind of you're up the creek on that particular turn. So she does have powerful events for her forms, but they are expensive. They are good burst damage. So, for example, using Gamma Blast costs 3. Change to Gamma Energy form and deal 7 damage to an enemy. If you're already in Gamma Energy form, this attack gains overkill. It would have been nice to say, well, if you weren't in that form, you get overkill anyway. Right? So you can shift, and it does good burst damage, but far too expensive, I feel, and with minimal benefit. So you already have to be in that form, so you don't feel like you're shifting constantly. I mean, Speed Light is okay. Change energy forms and draw a card. It's okay, but I think you get 3 of them in here. Yeah, and Blue Marble, the ally, allows you to switch as well. But it looks like on paper that you're going to be shifting all the time. But when you're actually playing it, it doesn't feel like it at all, because you're not really getting that much benefit from doing so. Our theme, 7. Like, I think that, every single card corresponds with her manipulation of energy. That that's what she does. That's her entire role. She just lacks any kind of personality in terms of, other than one signature ally in Blue Marble. She doesn't have any alter ego abilities or downtime abilities, anything like that. So she's kind of a bit of a void. But thematically, everything that she does corresponds with her energy forms. So that I will give that a 7. Versatility, she gets a 6. So she's a character whose core cards are weak enough that they have multiple viable aspects to play. Not so much to enhance, but to fix the weakness in her core. So leadership, of course, again, she's an Avenger, so that helps her a lot. Leadership, protection, and aggression can all work well with her. Complexity, giving her 4 out of 10. Slightly harder to play than most, primarily due to missteps that you can make when transforming between Gamma, Photon, and Pulsar. So there are some hard choices. You really have to know the villain that you're playing against, and what you have to pay a lot of attention to what's left in the encounter deck to make the most out of her. So, you don't want to have any hero really on autopilot, but she takes a lot more attention to be able to sufficiently pilot than a lot of heroes are. So 25 points in total. If there are cards in the future that support some kind of form changes as a reaction, and that are better than, say, Pulsar Shield, so Hero Interrupt Defense, when Spectrum defends, change to Pulsar Energy form and Ready Spectrum. If you're already in Pulsar form, she gains Retaliate 1. Okay, it's a cheap event. And it boosts her defense somewhat, but it just feels... that sort of reactive ability just feels poor on her turn. So maybe, we're looking at Kitty Pryde in Mutant Genesis, and she changes forms. Colossus changes forms. So maybe there'll be some aspect cards that deal with form changes that will help to boost Spectrum a little bit. But for now, she will sit solidly in 32, and I feel, maybe this is my own bias against most form-changing characters, I think she was, for me, always going to sit in tier 3. Coming in at number 31, Valkyrie. Okay, so fun factor is going to be a 4. Valkyrie was clearly designed primarily for multiplayer, and as a solo player, she feels very unsatisfying. She's very limited in her role. She's very minion focused. But being so dependent on Deathglow to function, which costs resources to deploy and cannot easily be transferred between targets, leads to frustration when playing her. And she has many, many bad matchups. And even villains with lots of minions only slightly help her to function. Power level, I'm going to give her a 4. Her 1-2-1 stat line is very poor. And she really has no interesting actions on her alter ego or hero side. Basically, they just rely, are basically detach Deathglow when you Switch to Alter Ego. Play Deathglow as if it were in your hand when it's set aside. So Deathglow is the fact that it costs 1 to be able to use it, 1 resource to use it on a minion, and you can't easily transfer it between minions depending on if you want to change your target, it's sort of stuck on them. Sometimes, force interrupt when attached enemy is defeated, set this card aside out of play. If Valkyrie defeated that enemy, ready her. That doesn't happen that often. Her Dragon Fang gives her a +1 attack or +2 attack. She goes to about 4 attack. But there are plenty of minions out there that can take more than 4. So over maybe 2 turns, you're trying to kill a larger enemy like a Frost Giant or something. Yeah, it just doesn't feel like you're getting much of a benefit. I don't know why Deathglow costs at all to be able to transfer, and why there aren't ways to just transfer it easily or in a less expensive fashion. Her weapons only slightly fix her deficits. So while she's got her weapon, she's +1 defense or +1 attack. Her thwart is always going to be fairly weak. And of course, then she only has +2 defense against the enemy with Deathglow attached, or +2 attack. So the +2 attack would be fine. The +2 defense, you don't want to be defending. Like, you want to be constantly attacking minions. So it's not that great. I wonder if these two this should not have been a defense card, but an additional attack card to really make her feel like this was her role to defeat minions. I don't know. Something just feels off in this design to me. However, her theme, I say, is pretty strong. She has Aragorn. She can visit Valhalla. Flight of the Valkyrie. When you defeat a Deathglowed minion, it removes 5 threat from a scheme. Annabelle Riggs. There's a lot to this to make her feel like as she's intended to function. Unfortunately, it doesn't really translate that well to how powerful she is. I don't feel these cards are a detriment to her. I understand why they're there and why they're able to support her, but they don't feel as powerful as they could be. But again, theme I feel with her is very strong. I think out of all the Asgardians, well, Thor, she's got the strongest theme. Versatility, I give that an 8. So all 4 aspects work equally well with Valkyrie, but only because her core is so weak. There are heroes like this that function with every aspect because their core is so good that your aspect choice is almost irrelevant. Or conversely, you've got such a weak hero that the best cards across the aspects slotted into their deck is the way to go. And Valkyrie is one of those. The aspect cards, the other 25, lift up her abilities. They have to do a lot of heavy lifting to make her playable, in my opinion. Complexity, I'll give it a 4, actually. She is harder to play because, you really have to be careful about where you're placing Deathglow to get her to do what she's supposed to do. And it is very easy to make a mistake, to put it on the wrong enemy. It feels like a waste. Like, say, there are no minions coming out for turn after turn after turn, and you've got it on the villain. Well, you're not really getting that much benefit of certain cards because you're not able to defeat him that quickly. Or he or she or they. It feels bad getting that stuck. And I find with Valkyrie, you really don't want to be flipping down that often to the Brunhilde side because of her low thwart. Like, she's got thwart burst she have big burst cards like Have At Thee, for example, but as long as Deathglow is attached. And Flight of the Valkyrie, a big threat removal. And that's fine, but she needs to be able to chip away at things. And that's why the rest of her deck, that's why the other 25 is where your saving grace is. So, yeah. So 28 points in total for her. She's never going to be errated to make Deathglow more functional. And as I stated, how I feel that Deathglow should be written or designed. And she's only going to be as good as more aspect cards come out to become more refined and more powerful. But there's really, I don't think at her core, anything that's really going to make her better. So I think, unfortunately, she's destined to be in Tier 3 forever. Coming in number 30, we have Groot. So fun factor, coming in at a 5, very much middle of the pack, just kind of a meh character. Purely a defensive hero that needs to frequently change between alter ego and hero to function. And while growth counters have multiple functions, it does allow for some interesting options during play. But, I mean, that's really what he does. He gets counters put on him to be able to function. Power level 5 is decidedly average. He's able to take quite a beating with his 3 defense. But 1 thwart is very, very weak for solo play. 2 attack is perfectly fine. But 10 hit points seems very slow. Or, sorry, low. Not slow. For a giant, resilient, I'm near immortal tree person. Yeah, I'm surprised that there really aren't any cards that enhance his hit points. I guess I understand why they did it. But, yeah, 10 just feels very low for a defensive hero like him. As far as theme goes, I give it a 6. I mean, he's a tree person. That's about it. Growth counters, fueling attacks, and thwarts is very thematic, but he doesn't have any signature ally nor locations, so it makes him kind of dull. Maybe it's also the brown design. I mean, what else can you do? But it just feels, he feels very dull. It just feels like he's a character and he's a bundle of rules rather than just an actual hero. Versatility. I give him a 6, but for solo, justice is required because of his low thwart. Protection works okay, especially with some of the newer protection cards that have come out. And leadership, just to be able to get a lot of usage out of his allies, since they're going to have to do a lot of the heavy lifting. To do anything significant, he really does have to use his growth counters, which is why him flipping back and forth can be somewhat... it feels somewhat slow. He is a very slow hero to play, which, you know, befits, again, a walking tree. But yeah, you can play pretty much anything, but aggression, I think, is not the way to go with Groot at all. Complexity, I give him a 6. Your only real decision points is how and when to use your growth counters instead of using them for defense. Again, you're never really going to get that many. He's got a maximum of 10 too, which is strange to me because there's other characters that have counters on them that have no maximum. Spider-Ham, for example. I'm not entirely sure why they limited to 10. It just feels odd to me why they did that. He certainly can't be autopiloted, so you do need to pay attention to when you need to flip back over, which of course you will be doing quite a bit with him. So I give him 20 points in total. I mean, there's not too much to say about Groot. He's so middle of the road and sort of bland. It's sort of it's easy to forget that he's even a character in the game, unfortunately. So unless there's cards in the future which offer other methods of using or generating counters, he's always going to be rooted in Tier 3. I don't think he's ever going to make it into Tier 2, unfortunately. So there's Groot sitting at 30th place. Coming in number 29, Black Panther. Fun factor, I give him a 5. Black Panther is a fairly simple design idea. Survive until you get all your upgrades out, and then hope you draw Wakanda forever to utilize them. Other than that, the upgrades really don't do anything, so your aspect choice for your remaining 25 has to do a lot of the heavy lifting with the character. His power level, I'll give him a 5. His basic stat line, though, 2-2-2, that's, to me, that's golden. That's where I prefer to have my heroes. They can do a little bit of each. Recovery 4 is excellent, and as is his action to tutor up his upgrade. Problem is, he's got no burst, thwart, or damage in his hero cards. And his upgrades just sort of chip away, no matter what order you put them in, at threat and at damage. It feels very incremental. It doesn't feel like he can ever really deliver a really significant amount of damage or get rid of a whole bunch of threat in one turn. So he's sort of decidedly in the middle. Retaliate 1, I will say, is a nice bonus against certain heroes. I mean, he is a core set hero, so I think he was designed to deal with Ultron, for example, and any kind of tough and so on, just to get those off automatically. It's a nice little bonus, but, overall, a very middle-of-the-road power level. Theme, however, I'm going to give an 8. Very strong. I mean, he's got the Golden City, he's got Shuri, Wakanda Forever, and his tech cards. Those turns where you can get multiple Wakanda Forevers, because there are 5 in the deck going off all at once. He's got 3 Vibranium, like double wildcard resources, are very powerful. But again, the theme is there, but it doesn't necessarily translate to the overall power of the character. His versatility. I give him a 6 in this. Black Panther is so focused that almost any aspect works with him. He sort of functions on his own because nothing really integrates with his weapons and his abilities, his upgrades. Interestingly, not tech either, huh? Their skills or their armor or weapon, but not technology. I never noticed that. So leadership, he is an Avenger after all. Justice and aggression can be made to work with him very effectively in solo. Not protection, he's just already too slow as it is. You need something to do some real burst, or to have something, cover you while you get out all your upgrades. Complexity, I'm going to give him a 4. He's harder than average because the sequencing of his upgrades when triggering them with Wakanda Forever takes a little bit of skill to work out. Which one to put last to really maximize your turns, which is all about what you need to do with Black Panther. You need to get the most out of Wakanda Forever every time you can play it. And it can be somewhat tricky, especially if you're likely facing a number of minions or multiple schemes with threat on them. How are you going to deal with them? I often feel that Tactical Genius, remove 1 threat from a scheme, 2 threat instead with if this is the final step in the sequence. I know you can potentially play multiple Wakanda Forevers, but I wonder if this should have been something like remove 1 threat from all schemes. Might have been a little more effective, because we know how some of the villains love to have multiples out. But that is his design. I understand why he was designed this way, but it does make him a little more complex. So 28 points in total. So the first of the core box characters on our list, but one that really is not profited very much to affect his core cards from the deep library of cards that are now available. So it's a situation where you've already got fantastic cards out in the card pool across all aspects. Are they going to get even better or our new synergy is going to be discovered, more than likely, but they're not very likely to integrate very well with the core gameplay loop that Black Panther has. So it's unlikely he's going to get out of tier 3, but you know, I have hope. Oddly enough, I do have fun when I play Black Panther, but I go into the games knowing that these are going to be long games. So there he is, Black Panther, sitting at 29. Coming in at 28, we have War Machine. So, fun factor, I'm going to give him a 7. It is very fun to load up on ammo and just let rip, cutting down minions and villains in a hail of automatic and missile fire. War Machine certainly has the tools to get the job done, but I would rate his power level as only a 5. For all his impressive potential to do damage, he's limited by his ammo counters. He must switch between forms almost every turn, leaving him open to the villain suddenly scheming out. 1, 2, and 2 is a strong enough stat line, but his starting hit points of 10 seems awfully low for a walking tank. His recursion ability on the alter ego side at least gives you some benefit from his frequent switching. So at least you can get War Machine cards back from your discard pile and shuffle into your deck, because you are almost every other turn going to be flipping back and forth to replenish the ammo counters. Theme, I'll give him a 7. I mean, he deals out damage. He's a suit of armor with so very many weapons and armor upgrades and so on. He has Tony Stark as his signature ally. He's got the munitions bunker that you can return to fill up on more delicious ammo. But there's not really much more that I don't think that can be done with the character or the hero as a character. I mean, again, he does what he says on the tin. He is a war machine, and sometimes he has to go get more ammo. So sometimes simple is better, and I think the theme for him is perfectly fine, coming in a 7 out of 10. For his versatility, I give him a 4, because War Machine takes care of aggression all on his own. Using aggression would be kind of putting a hat on a hat. Leadership and justice are pretty much the go-to aspects for War Machine to do what he does best. So he needs to have the cover from the allies to be able to, pick apart the villain, to pick apart minions, to do his thwarting and so on, and get his engine going with all his potential tech upgrades. And justice, of course, because he only has a thwart of 1. I mean, where is it here? Target acquired? Yeah, targeted strike is quite good. Remove 1 ammo counter from War Machine, remove 1 threat from a scheme as an event. So thwart 3 is okay. He's in that sense, he's very mid-range. He does have burst, but, it costs a lot of ammo to do so, and resources to be able to do it. So you do need that cover to get the most out of his weapons, and leave the thwarting to his aspect cards, ultimately, or his allies. Complexity, I'm going to give him a 5. He's very middle of the road. The greatest challenge with him, like all counter-based heroes, is when to spend and when to earn. War Machine has to do this almost constantly, so that choice is sort of taken out of your hands. But how do you use your available weapon counters to their maximum ability? That is the question on your turns. So I'm going to give him 28 points in total. War Machine rises above the pack of heroes, tied at 28 due to his fun factor. But he's in tier 3 due to his on-rails style of gameplay. New card releases only enhance his aspect and basic card choices, but not his core gameplay loop. So again, much like Groot, unless there are new cards that do something with tokens or allow you to, or in the aspects to gain more counters, I don't know if he's ever really going to improve any. He's somewhat locked into those 2 aspects, I feel, and without those aspect cards that work well with his ammo counters, I don't know if he's ever going to rise above. I certainly don't think he's going to dip any. I just don't think that you'll be seeing him rising up to tier 2 anytime soon. So that's War Machine at 28. Coming in number 27, we have Wasp. So remember when I said with Spectrum that I don't like form-changing heroes? Well, Wasp falls into this category. So while making potential mistakes in form is possible, it's far less devastating than it would be with Spectrum. However, she can't change as frequently as I would like, nor does she gain an immediate triggering event when doing so. So for her power level, I'm going to give her a 6, so slightly higher than average, with a giant form of, I'll have to get her open here, there we go. A giant form of 2, 2, and 3, which outshines her tiny form of 1, 1, and 2. Her abilities allow her to go pretty wide against villains, but she only has pinpoint strength, or pinpoint strike, I should say, to do any real burst damage, and she has to be in tiny form to do so. In Alter Ego, the girl action is a great recursion mechanic, and returns 2 genius cards from your discard pile into your deck once per round. So that's pretty good in that form. So her Alter Ego, getting the necessary cards back in your deck are very valuable. So for her theme, I'd say her theme is pretty strong here, so I'm going to give her a 7. Her Red Room training, her Pim particles, Scott Lang as her ally, her tech, so her helmet and her wings, for example, all very thematic. Pretty strong, I'd say. She is intended to be a hitter. She's very aggressive in her form changing, and all of her cards do reflect this. For versatility, I'm going to give her a 4. Justice and protection are go-to aspects, with the former being much more favorable for her. She needs to be given room to allow her core cards to do their job. You have to have justice to be able to thwart effectively with her to allow her to do the hitting that she needs to do. It's as simple as that. I find that she can play in protection, but she's very slow. But that's the nature of most protection decks anyway. Complexity, give her a 6. All form changers are complex. You need to be careful as not to be stuck in a form you don't want on your turn. However, Wasp has enough versatility to make bad choices much less painful. So I'm going to give her a 29 in total. She's very close to being a mid-tier hero. I think that if more... again, this is a case of form-changing heroes. So we're looking at, again, Kitty Pryde and Colossus coming down the road. So if there are aspect cards that assist or enhance form changing, I think that she could greatly benefit from that and could move out of tier 3 to tier 2. But we will have to see when those cards come out. But right now, she's sitting at 27 and a tier 3 hero. Coming in at 26, we have SheHulk. Okay, so I have to admit some bias. SheHulk is one of my favorite Marvel characters. John Byrne's sensational SheHulk run back in the day was a lot of fun, and I do enjoy the TV show that's on right now. And she is more effective as a Hulk than her cousin is in the game. She has a little more breadth to her card abilities. She just feels more powerful in the way that the Hulk, unfortunately, does not. So for that, I give her a fun factor of 7. Power level, though, I'm going to put her at a 5. 1, 3, 2 is a good stat line. And flipping over to here, she does a flat 2 damage to an enemy, which is very good. Her Alter Ego helps to mitigate the threat, and she has a 5 recovery. But it's her 4 hand size in hero form that's a severe limitation, considering how expensive some of her core cards can be. Like Focused Rage. I get why Focused Range is expensive. Exhaust it, take a damage, and draw a card. And with her hit points of 15, she can take a lot of punishment and get a lot of use out of it. But man, that is an expensive engine card. And Gamma Slime costing 4 Although using Gamma Slam can be quite fun depending on how much damage she's already taken. Maximizing out at 15, that will one-shot a lot of heroes in the game. So it's pretty good. Just leaves you in a really bad spot if you're down to like 1 hit point. So no, I think her core cards are expensive, which kind of does limit her overall effectiveness. So, but it's on those rare split personality turns where she's able to draw a ton of cards that elevates her from a weak hero to middle of the road in terms of her overall power. If it wasn't for split personality, I don't think she would be very effective, especially when you have basically dead cards like Ground Stomp. Like, I get why this is in her deck because she is core set, and oh, again, it's Ultron. Oh, better get rid of all those Ultron drones. But yeah, it's against everybody else. It's just a dead card, and she's got what, just one, maybe two? She's got two in her deck, so it's only ever going to be used as a resource. Unless you come across a real corner case, like a lot of tough enemies or something. But yeah, just a dead card otherwise. So for a theme, better than average due to her, the demands placed on her as a lawyer. So you have legal practice and the superhuman law division. Really focusing on her alter ego side. She will be flipping quite frequently, both for card draw. And there is some benefit on the alter ego side to limit the amount of threat that goes through. I find that it does lack some of the humor that I associate with the character. It's there a bit, but it could be a little she could be a little funnier. And I think that's sort of represented in the cards in a way, because she looks on these cards a lot like they have art from different stages of her life, where she's relatively thin here, and then she's super bulked up on Gamma Slam or Superhuman Strength. That's how she looks in the Marvel Universe, or in the comics right now. So there's some inconsistency there in theme, unfortunately. As far as her versatility goes, I give her a 4. Well, there's a number of aggression decks on the database. Only Justice and Leadership really work with her. Admittedly, this is a common issue with, as you're going to see us repeated with solo play. Justice and Leadership tend to be your go-tos. Much like Wasp, she needs a lot of time to be able to get her core cards out, and your allies taking hits and getting rid of threat, and Justice just getting rid of threat as well is crucial to get her up and running, especially with such a small hand size. Complexity 7, not really that difficult. It's all about the split personality turns. It's such a good card, and you're just waiting until you have an opportunity to play it. And because SheHulk has to flip so frequently, it's nothing but it's a great benefit to you. When you have those turns, they work out very well for you. So basically, just let your aspect cards do the work for you. Wait until you get those turns where you can do some significant smashing with 1-2 punches. And there are, of course, more cards that have come out to support a 15 hit point hero. Lots of ways to get them to stand back up again, to do more on their turns. So chances are we've seen the end of that cycle of cards to boost her abilities, but we'll have to see if they put any more in the game that help anybody who's over 14 health points or hit points. 29 total points. As much as I like her, her success, I do feel, really hinges on the split personality turn. I think that there's a potential for her to get better, because she certainly is a little more versatile than the Hulk is. But unless there's more cards that help with form changing, and there may very well be, I think that she is unfortunately going to be languishing for now as a tier 3 hero. And it hurts to say it, because I really do enjoy playing her but I think that she's got a real uphill battle against the majority of villains. So there's She-Hulk sitting at 26. All right, coming in at 25 in the top of our tier 3, we have Drax. So for a fun factor, I'm going to give him a 7. I mean, when you play him, you do feel like you're a brawler. Like you're always on the edge of losing a fight and you can battle back just because of your tenacity. Are you able to maximize your vengeance counters before you get pummeled to death? You're really sort of walking that nice edge on every turn. So that's fun. Unfortunately, I'd say his power level is only a 5. Maintaining the vengeance counters is pretty difficult. And his stat line of 1, 1, and 2, although enhanced by his weapons, is a little on the low side. And his attack is entirely dependent on how many counters he can keep on himself, to a maximum of 3. Unfortunately, it's his small hero hand size of 4 that does, I think, tip towards lowering his power in a way that having 14 hit points and a recovery of 4 it counterbalances a little too much into the negative, and he really needs to be careful on how he uses his hand every turn. He doesn't have too many expensive cards, except for Knife Leap, which is pretty potent. Especially, again, if it costs 0 if you have all 3 of your vengeance counters on. It's okay. But yeah, I find that he's not quite as powerful as he could be. His theme, however, I'm going to give him an 8. Basically, because on the principle of keep it simple, stupid. He does what he says in the tin. He's got knives. He's got one friend in Mantis, and that's pretty much all that he needs. He just fights. And that's the thing across, I think, all the Guardians, is that they do lack some character to them. But you do really feel with Drax that he is a brawler. All his cards identify with that, even though you may be missing like a location or some alter ego ability. And again, he's only got Mantis. So lowers it somewhat, but I think that sometimes simpler is best. So 8 out of 10 for his theme. For his versatility, he does pretty well with protection, and that's primarily to fuel his vengeance counters, leadership, and aggression. His core cards don't really interact with a lot of aspect cards, so in that sense, he's fairly versatile. For his complexity, he's a 5. He's middle of the road. It's very, very hard to keep those counters on him and not have to flip to auto heal. You need to know how to pick your fights or risk overextending yourself. So really sort of middle of the road in terms of his difficulty. I mean, he's a fighter. I wonder in some ways if he was designed more so for multiplayer than solo, but when I've played him, I've had fun with him. So I'm going to give him 30 total points. So I think he has a lot of room to grow, especially with more cards that come out to mitigate damage. I'm thinking in protection, there's the new, relatively new force field generator. Basically, I think it's 3 points, 3 resources for 6, essentially 6 more hit points. And of course, those cards that have come out that do support characters with more than 14 hit points. So I think he may have some room to grow to maybe they'll move into tier 2. Anything that gives him like tough maybe, or allows him to ready multiple times in the turn. So he's just, I feel, on the cusp of making it tier 2. I think that there are some good opportunities as more aspect cards get refined in the card pool, that he could make his way out of tier 3. So that's it. That's Drax at 25. Okay, and here we have our tier 3 heroes going from StarLord in last place at 35 to Drax at 25. So I said at the beginning there were 12 heroes in this tier. There are 11. I miscounted. So I think in this block there's going to be very little room to maneuver for them. I think that who knows when I revisit this in a year, who may be down here in the doldrums with them, or because other characters, as we tend to see, newer characters tend to be a little more powerful, or basically more thematic or more interesting in their mechanic. Maybe they'll, be tier 2 or higher and keep this tier suppressed. So, let me know in the comments below if you agree with these ratings so far for our tier 3 heroes. Next time, it'll be tier 2 and another batch. And until next time, happy gaming. Thank you so much for watching Longship Gaming. If you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, and leave a comment. It will really help the channel to grow and improve. Don't forget to hit the bell icon so you'll be notified when more Longship Gaming content goes live. Until next time, happy gaming.